December 30th, 2025. Shanghai Pudong International Airport buzzed with anticipation. Crowds pressed against the fences, flags and phones raised, eyes locked on the tarmac. There, gleaming in the morning sun, sat the C919. This was more than a new jet. It was China's answer to decades of dependence. Broadcast live to over 1 billion, the moment was heavy with history. On board, test pilots ran final checks. Officials sat in tense silence. This flight was a declaration. China could build a world-class passenger jet, powered by its own heart. The CJ-100A engine, homegrown and untested in commercial flight, was about to make history. As the C919 began its taxi, the crowd fell silent. The low hum of the engines was a new sound, a symbol of national ambition. Years of frustration and pride had led to this. The CJ-100A represented a leap, a break from reliance on foreign technology. Every fan blade was a testament to sleepless nights and relentless effort. Tower, China, Eastern, C919, ready for departure. Clearance granted. The engines roared to life. The aircraft surged forward, lifting off with grace. Wheels retracted. The C919 climbed into a clear blue sky. A collective gasp. Then thunderous cheers erupted below. The Dragon had taken flight. China had entered a new era, one of aviation independence. The world watched as the C919 soared, powered by a Chinese engine. For the first time, the future of Chinese aviation was truly in Chinese hands. The symbolism was unmistakable, a nation rising, on wings of its own making. Pudong's runway became a stage for a new chapter in global aviation. The C919's ascent was more than technical. It was cultural, political, and deeply personal. For those who had dreamed, struggled, and built in silence, this was vindication. The sky was no longer the limit. The Dragon's roar echoed far beyond Shanghai. A new journey had begun, and the world would never see China's skies the same way again. In the crowd, a retired engineer wiped away tears. He remembered the Y-10, China's failed jet of the 1970s, a dream deferred. Now the C919's ascent was redemption for a generation. For millions, the jet was more than metal. It was the China dream, finally realized. China had built the world's trains and phones, but its skies belonged to foreign wings. Every flight on a Boeing or Airbus was a reminder of a technological gap. The C919, with its CJ-100A engine, aimed to close that gap. This was about pride, about proving China could master the crown jewel of industry, the jet engine. The journey was long, marked by setbacks, secrecy, and relentless pressure. Building a modern turbofan required mastery few nations possessed. The CJ-100A became a national obsession, a patriotic duty for its engineers. Their work was a silent war for technological sovereignty. This flight was catharsis, a release of decades of aspiration. The image of the C919, flying on its own power, became instantly iconic. It was a message. China would no longer depend on others for its most critical technologies. The success resonated far beyond aviation, boosting national morale. It reinforced the narrative of self-reliance and determination. With enough will and resources, China could overcome any obstacle. The Dragon was not just flying, it was soaring, on wings of its own making. The world had witnessed a nation's dream, forged in steel and silence, finally take flight. And for those who had waited a lifetime, it was worth every moment. For decades, the skies were ruled by Boeing and Airbus. China's airlines spent billions on foreign jets, fueling a strategic vulnerability. Every new order was a reminder. China's air travel relied on Western supply chains. A trade dispute could ground entire fleets. The dream of a Chinese-built jet was born from this reality. COMAC launched the C919 project in 2008, aiming to compete with the 737 and A320. The plan designed the airframe, but sourced critical parts, especially engines, from the West. The first C919s flew with LEAP-1C engines, a temporary fix. True independence required a Chinese engine. Only then could China step out of the shadow of Boeing and Airbus. The C919's journey was about more than commerce. It was about national security. The ultimate goal, a jet powered by China, for China. That goal was now within reach. The engine is the soul of any jet, and the CJ-100A was China's greatest challenge. Building a high-bypass turbofan meant mastering materials that could survive hellish heat and stress. For decades, only a few Western companies held this knowledge. Chinese engineers faced a steep learning curve. single crystal turbine blades, exotic alloys, microscopic tolerances. Early prototypes failed, materials cracked, progress was slow, but each setback taught valuable lessons. China had to build not just an engine but an entire supply chain from scratch. Billions were poured into research universities and factories. The CJ-100A became a symbol of quiet persistence. Engineers worked in obscurity, analyzing every failure, innovating where they had to. The project was a national mobilization, an industrial moonshot. Every breakthrough was hard-won, every success a step toward independence. The CJ-100A's journey was a silent struggle, fought in labs and test cells. But, with each test, China climbed closer to joining the world's elite engine makers. The impossible was becoming reality. As China's aviation ambitions grew, so did Washington's concern. The C919 was seen as a threat, not just commercially, but strategically. Advanced aerospace tech has dual uses, and the US moved to block China's progress. Export controls tightened. Chinese firms linked to the C919 and CJ-100A landed on the entity list. The goal cut off access to critical American technology, engines, avionics, materials. Washington believed China's reliance on the West would stall its program. Sanctions became a technological blockade, designed to keep the C919 grounded. The message: China could build the body, but the heart and brain would remain American. It was a direct challenge to China's quest for sovereignty. The US gambled on its technological lead, confident China couldn't catch up soon. The sanctions aimed to preserve the Boeing Airbus duopoly, but in trying to build a wall, Washington handed China the blueprint for its own fortress. The stage was set for a new kind of race. The sanctions didn't cripple China, they galvanized it. What began as a commercial project became a national security mission. Engineers worked around the clock, racing to replace every foreign component. The government slashed red tape, poured in funding, and coordinated a whole-of-nation effort. The C919 became the flagship of a new strategy: dual circulation, building a resilient domestic economy. Failure was not an option. The pressure forged new capabilities and confidence. Chinese suppliers, once second tier, were thrust to the forefront. Forced innovation was painful, but transformative. The supply chain became stronger, more independent. The American wall became a ladder. China climbed faster than anyone expected. The C919's journey was now a story of national resolve. The world watched as China turned adversity into advantage. The Dragon was learning to fly on its own terms. The C919 was no longer just a plane. It was a symbol of resilience. Every homegrown bolt and line of code became a victory. The focus shifted to the CJ-100A engine. Its completion was now urgent. The best minds in China were mobilized. The mission clear: achieve true independence. State media celebrated every milestone, framing the project as a patriotic triumph. The C919 became a source of national pride even before its first commercial flight. By the time it flew with the CJ-100A, its meaning had transformed. It was no longer just a competitor. It was proof China could not be contained. The aircraft stood for a new era, a national epic. The project had started as commerce, but ended as a statement to the world. The Dragon's wings were now its own. The C919's successful flight sent shockwaves through global aviation. The Boeing Airbus duopoly was broken. A third giant had arrived. China was now a producer, not just a market. Chinese airlines shifted orders to COMAC, securing the C919's future. The jet became the default for China's carriers, creating a fortress market. Abroad, developing nations saw the C919 as an attractive political alternative. Aviation began to fragment, a Western bloc, and a new bloc centered on China. China promoted its own certification standards, challenging the old order. The world moved from Western rules to a multipolar system. Airlines and manufacturers faced new complexities. China was now a rule maker in the skies. Looking back, the C919 story is a lesson in unintended consequences. American sanctions, meant to block China, became the tailwind for its rise. The US underestimated China's resolve and capacity for mobilization. The C919, flying with its own engine, is a symbol of resilience and innovation. Attempts to enforce blockades can backfire, accelerating the very progress they seek to prevent. China learned to swim when the US tried to drain the pool and built its own. The global aviation market is forever changed. Boeing and Airbus now face a formidable state-backed rival. The Dragon's flight is a cautionary tale. Attempts to contain a determined rival may only awaken it. The C919 is proof of Chinese ambition and the folly of underestimating it. The Dragon was not slain, it was awakened.